Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be wrapping up my coverage of U.S. Nationals, and I'll be recapping both the women's and the men's events in this episode. So first, with the women, we have to talk about a couple of the withdrawals. Ava Marie Ziegler was an early withdrawal from Nationals some time ago. She was unable to compete in any competitions this season, which is a real bummer for her. We just really haven't been able to see her capitalize off of that big win at NHK last year. Wasn't at Nationals last year, and unfortunately wasn't able to compete at this Nationals also. And then a few days before the event, Isabeau Levito withdrew. Isabeau won Nationals 2 years ago. She is the reigning world silver medalist. She did petition for a spot, and I'll talk about the spots at the end of the ladies part before I get into the men. So let's talk about those competitors who were here, and the winner here was Amber Glenn. Amber winning her second national title in a row. She came in as a heavy favorite, and she has not lost a single competition that she has entered this season, winning her challenger, both of her Grand Prix and Grand Prix final, and she opted not to go to four continents, which was not surprising, as usually the top U.S. lady does not go to four continents. And so on to Worlds she goes in a bid to win the biggest title of her career in a home Worlds in a season that she hasn't lost. So pretty incredible. This was not her best effort here in either segment of the program, but she does enough to win. And I just have to say, in general, I was in such a bad mood watching the women's free skate the other night. I don't know if those of you who interact with me on X especially or Blue Sky could tell, but I just thought that the women's free skate was the most disappointing event of the entire championships in all four disciplines. I mean, it was so many skates before we even had 100 points, and then nobody skated cleanly at all. So it was kind of frustrating to watch, like routine after routine. And obviously, there were still some great moments in there, and there were some great moments in the short program too. But in general, it was just kind of a bummer. So for Amber in the short program, she double-footed her triple axel, which has been so clean for her all season. And then she got into her usually pretty money triple flip, triple toe combination and only got a double toe off. So she found herself actually in third going into the free skate, which was, of course, not where she wanted to be. And she got into the free skate and did pretty well. It wasn't perfect, but she got 145 points, which I was like, oh boy, that's going to be hard for anybody to hit. And especially for Alyssa, who was in first place. We haven't seen her score anything like that. And so she was able to come from behind to win the title here. In second place was Alyssa Liu. And one of the great moments from the entire championships was Alyssa's short program. This, for me, has been the better vehicle all season versus her free skate. And the music just feels like a really great choice for her with her comeback. And it just created a real moment in the short program. Now, the short program has been really strong for her all season. What has gotten her in trouble internationally was calls. Getting calls on that triple toe in her combo. She didn't get any calls in the short program, which oftentimes at nationals, they might be a little bit more lenient with the calls, but they did make a lot of calls in this competition, Q calls, under calls, downgrades. So perhaps she did get it all the way around, unless it's like egregious. A lot of times it's hard for me to tell. And like I mentioned on the podcast before, I usually am not like really looking at that super duper closely to see from competition to competition if there is a difference. A lot of times some people will put that up on some of the social media to slow down where you can sort of look at those things. But here, she didn't get any calls in the short program. So she came into the free skate with a pretty sizable lead, about 6 points, which over Amber, which she definitely needed because she doesn't have the same level of tech content in the free skate. But that being said, she went out and landed everything. So after her step sequence, I thought, she's done enough. Like 140 points is a big score, but it's nationals. She didn't make any visible errors that I could see. And I thought that she would get enough to win the national title. And I thought that put that out there on social media, on Blue Sky and X, and then she promptly fell out of her Billman spin. And so she ended up not winning. She was just a little over a point behind Amber overall in the standings to finish second. And so a lot of people blame the Billman spin, and obviously that was one of the reasons that she didn't win the national title, but it wasn't the only reason, because she did get some calls in the free skate that were costly. So the Lutz triple toe that she got called fully clean in the short program, unfortunately for her, was called in the free skate. So in the short program, she did a triple flip, triple toe, and that didn't get called. In the free skate, she does a triple Lutz triple toe, and that did get a call. So she got a Q on the triple toe, so that affected the points that she got on that. Had that been fully around, it would have been enough for her to win. She also got calls on her triple flip double toe later in the program. She got an undercall on both of those jumps, which, had she got those fully around, she would have won. And in the Billman spin, she did not lose that spin like some people were saying on social media. She got leveled down to a level 2. Obviously, if she hadn't fallen out of that, she would have won. So there were several different opportunities within her free skate for her to still have won, not just the Billman spin. That being said, it was still, for her, the best competition that we have seen her this season. She's really been strong in the short program all year. But it's the free skate that really has sort of let her down. And she hasn't had like major falls or anything like that. It's mostly been a lot of calls. And so largely people have sort of decided that she just doesn't quite have the stamina yet to do a full 4-minute program. And that's sort of the difference in what we have seen from her getting those calls, especially on the jumps later in the program, versus what we see in the short program, where it's much shorter. There's only 3 jumping passes. And so the stamina doesn't affect her quite the same. And it's probably something that we're really not going to see the benefits of until next season, right? I don't know that, at 4 continents, a little less than a month from now, and then Worlds, 2 months from now, that we're really going to see much of a difference there internationally, but we'll see. But it was really great to see her skate so well. And it also was really great to see her so emotional after the short program. And it wasn't just her that was emotional. The commentators were very emotional watching her skate as well. I think a lot of people that I saw, congratulating her on Instagram, other skaters were also really happy for her. I think overall, it's so great to have Alyssa back. And even though like that free skate, I don't feel like is as strong as a vehicle for her, she was having so much fun with it, and the crowd was really into it. And that is more important really than anything else. It's just that her joy of skating is back, and she really came into the season expecting to be in the top 3 and make it on the world team. I think throughout the fall, it was not a slam dunk. Sarah made a very good case, and Brady was making a very good case. But here, almost winning, she definitely punched her ticket to ISU championship season. And third place here was Sarah Everhart. And she, in her short program, opts for an easier combo. Like most of the top skaters, and the top skaters here are doing triple Lutz triple toe or triple flip triple toe. She opts for a triple toe triple toe. And I think at some point she's going to need to upgrade that to a more difficult triple triple, or do that triple triple later in the program to get some bonus points, because I do think that can affect how she scores internationally, especially when she's missing on that second mark. Right now, you want as many points on that tech score as you can get. In the free skate, she stepped out of her triple loop. So not a major error, not quite as automatic as we have seen her at times on the Grand Prix or in the Challenger in the season, but still very strong. The crowd, I think, especially when we had so many skates that were very lackluster, really responded to this particular skate. I find this boring, but figure skating is subjective. A lot of people really, really are excited by Sarah, and I really am excited by her jumps. So I don't want people to misunderstand that I don't like Sarah Everhart. Like I like her a lot. I just have very high expectations for women skating in the US. We have oftentimes really strong artists, and we have times have really lacked really good technicians. And so we want somebody to be able to bring both of those to the table. And oftentimes, yes, you can develop those artistic skills later. For some people, they never really develop them. I do think that her team is really going to work on that in the off season. I don't know that we're going to see huge strides next season. Some people feel like they've been able to see strides this season. I actually feel like and I'm just talking about me personally, enjoyed this Firebird free skate more in the beginning of the season than I am now. But again, I cannot deny her amazing technical ability for sure. And we will see her at least at 4 continents, if not worlds, and all of that will depend on some other things that I'll talk about a little bit later. All right, in 4th place was Brady Tennell, and makes it onto the podium in pewter. And for her, I feel like it's just been kind of the same thing that we've seen from her throughout this whole season. Very strong performance in the short program, and just cannot quite get it together in the free skate. She was second after the short program after a clean skate. I thought it was a very strong performance. I think the Lord of the Dance has really worked all season. She did get a call on her combo, but still found herself in a really great position to at least make an argument to be on the world team or be a first alternate. But just too many issues in the free skate for her, and she ends up falling to 4th. They took a strategy this season that they've used all year where she doesn't do a triple in the free skate. She just does like the double axel triple toe combo, which I'm not mad at because it's a strategy that Mariah Bell used a little bit later in her career as well, when they don't quite get the call on a triple, it's not really worth the risk. Better to put those jumps somewhere else. But what it does do is it makes it where you can't afford to miss. And anywhere that you miss really affects the tech score because you're coming in sort of at a disadvantage. And so going forward, is that a strategy that they stick with? Can they go back? Because, Brady used to have very strong triple Lutz, triple toe combinations, triple flip, triple toe combinations that for her have just been called under or got a cue all season. And that has, been an issue for her as well as the overall consistency. But I really love the free skate too. I think that the Turandot has been a really dynamic program for her. It's something that we see a lot of Asian skaters skate to, but we don't see a lot of people outside of the Asian continent skate to. And I really liked it on her. She also used it last season, so even though she didn't really skate very much last season because of the injury, I do expect that we'll have new material from her next season, and she's definitely going to be in that mix for the Olympics next year. But they got to work on, just a few of these issues that have just been pesky for her all season. In 5th place was Sherry Zhang, who was coming up into her first senior nationals. She was 4th at Junior Nationals 2 years ago. She competed in the Junior Grand Prix last season and then went to the Youth Olympic Games, which was going on last year the same time that Nationals was going on, the same time that 4 Continents was going on. And so it kind of, some people watched it. I watched very, very little on it because there was just so much other skating that was going on at the time. But because of that, she wasn't at Junior Nationals last year. So we haven't seen her at Nationals in a couple of seasons. And boy, did she make an impression finishing 5th here. She's not age eligible to compete at internationally this season. And I'm pretty sure that I heard she's also not age eligible to compete next season either. So she is somebody who's got a couple of years before she can compete at the senior level, but made a really good impression here. In her short program, very strong with her tango program. She got 67 points with a triple-double combination, which means that, if she can get a triple-triple combination in there, U.S. judges at least are fully ready to give her 70 points for that. I really thought that she had really fantastic presentation skills, which excites me a lot when they have that and they have the technical component as well. And her free skate, she was skating to the Hunger Games, had this very dramatic opening, but several jump issues that she had in her program. She doubled a jump, she fell on a jump, but I think she's got a lot of potential and some really nice charisma. In 6th place was Star Andrews, and she has been dealing with some, minor ankle sprain type of injuries. We did not see her in the Grand Prix this season because there were other ladies who got assignments over her, but she really made the best of her opportunity here at Nationals. Not so much in the short program, but really rebounded well in the free skate. In the short program, Star typically does a triple toe as her combo, and she only got off a single toe after the first triple toe. Just didn't have a really strong landing on that, not enough momentum or something that prevented that from happening. It's a big no-no. In the short program, it's already a lower scoring combination in terms of what most of the other skaters are doing, and then to have a real real mistake on that. She got like 2 points for that combo. So she ended up sub 60 and she was in 12th place after the short program, really, really low in the standings, and came out in the free skate and just really skated, just pretty much balls to the wall for what we see of Star. Star does not have a triple Lutz. She has not attempted a triple Lutz in the last, I don't think in this entire Olympic cycle, if I remember correctly. So for her, the triple flip is the most difficult jump that she has, and oftentimes she struggles with at least one, if not both of those that she has in her program. And here, both of them were done cleanly, which helped her tremendously. She did fall on triple loop, which is a good jump for her late in her program, but everything else was done to really high quality, no real wonky landings. She got level 4s on everything and scored almost 127 points in her free skate. And on a day that a lot of people were struggling to get in the 120s, she went all the way up to 6th place, which was a pretty fantastic jump for her and just kind of showing that she still got it. Star is somebody that if she ever could get a triple Lutz, I think that could be a real game changer for her, because when you only have 4 of the 6 triples, it doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room, right? You can do up to 7 triples in a free skate if you don't have a triple axel. If you have a triple axel, you could do 8. But if you have 5 triples, which most of the ladies do, then you can do 7. But if you only have 4, you can only do 6 triples because you can only repeat 2. So it decreases the amount of points that she has in her ceiling. Kind of like what I talked about earlier with Brady. You've got to nail everything just to sort of be in the conversation. If you have any mistakes, it's very, very difficult. And of course, in her short program, she comes in with lower tech content because not only does she have just a triple toe, she also chooses to do a triple loop as her solo jump, which is a good scoring triple, but not as high as a flip would be. But it's not as consistent for her, so she can't really go with that. And of course, she doesn't have the Lutz. It's something that if she could get a triple Lutz in her repertoire, it could help her tremendously in helping upgrade her tech content overall. In 7th place was Josephine Lee, and she had pneumonia recently, and so she came in really wanting another week to train. Josephine had some issues in her short program because she got calls on both her triple combo and her solo triple flip. She also had issues on 2 of her spins, got level 3s, and then one she got a V on, which remember, that means that she did not get enough variations or enough revolutions with one of the variations. And then she also got a level 3 in her step sequence. So she left a lot of points on the table going into the free skate. Free skate, she was good. She's always been a good free program skater. Last year, she had a strong free skate, propelled herself onto the 2nd spot on the podium. 2 years ago, she had a great free skate that pulled her up from like 12th to 6th or something like that. In the Junior Grand Prix this season, a lot of times it was the short program that really sort of put her behind, having to play catch up in the free skate. So going forward, that's definitely a place that she's going to have to work on. She is not currently age eligible to compete at the senior events, but when she is senior, then she's definitely going to need to make sure she cleans those things up because she's definitely got the goods in the free skate, but in the short program is really where things go awry for her. In 8th place was Elise Lynn Gracie, and another just kind of heartbreaking for her because she started off the season so strong with 2nd place at Cranberry Cup and winning Nebelhorn, winning to Skate America. People were picking her to win the whole event, and the pressure really got to her. And then she didn't have any time or any space to really breathe and digest that event because she went straight into Skate Canada and had kind of similar results. So we haven't seen her in a while, and the spotlight is much bigger on other competitors. So I was hoping that we would see a little bit more of her that we saw at the beginning of the season. And unfortunately, it was kind of a lot of the same. And the short program, you could really feel the hesitation going into that triple Lutz, triple toe combo, and she fell on the triple toe. And Elise has this habit of practicing her triple Lutz before her skate. Like, I'm not talking about in the warm-up, but in like that 2 minutes, where you're waiting for the previous skater scores when they're sort of skating around, she will often do a triple Lutz or sometimes even a full triple Lutz, triple toe combination. And I saw her do it at Skate America. Jackie said she did it again here in the short program, and she'll land it perfect then. And then as soon as the music's on, then it becomes an issue in the skate. And I wonder if that helps her or if that's more of a problem for her to do that. Like, does it psych her out, landing it right before, and then she gets into the program or does it help her? Like, it doesn't seem like it helps her. Like, we see lots of skaters at times that will do like sort of a prep, maybe they'll do a single, at most a double. Very rarely do we have skaters that will go out and do a triple jump before they go. And I'm just not sure if it's the best strategy going in, because it's always the jump that things seem to go awry for her. And the same thing in the free skate. It started off with her popping the triple lutz right off the top. And then the rest of the program from there was just really messy. And Elise is someone who has all the goods. She has two really beautifully choreographed programs. She has nice artistry. But unfortunately, the nerves have really gotten to her in the big competitions this season. And I hope that in the off season that whatever, they did in Colorado for Amber, can they also do for Elise this off season as well, so we can see her at her best. Because at her best, she's phenomenal, and she can absolutely compete for Olympic spots next season. But if this is the Elise that we're going to get, then that's not going to be in the cards for her. In ninth place was Sonia Hilmer, which was a great finish for her. Her goal was to finish in the top 10 and at nationals this season, and she did just that. Really stronger performances from her than what we've seen from her in the last 2 years. Technically, she's always really great artistically. She always has some of the best choreographed programs. She choreographs them herself. Really enjoyed her short program to a cover of Unforgettable. And in the free skate, she nailed that triple Salchow, double Salchow combo that she's just not quite gotten the last 2 years at nationals. And it was really perfect here this season. And she was also choreographing for another skater as well, too. I can't remember which skater it was that was here at nationals in the short program that had choreography from Sonia, but she definitely has a career in choreography after she retires for sure. And well, frankly, she's got a career in choreography right now because she's doing it right now while she's still competing. She's somebody I would love to see get like some senior Bs or some other assignments where she could compete internationally. In 10th place was Logan Hagasi Chin, and she was last year's junior national champion. In her short program, she had a very strong performance and ended up in that last final group. But in her long program, it really exposed some of the deficiencies that she has right now. Like, her jumps are good, like the flamenco style that she was trying to do in this free skate, but she definitely needs more performance and more connection to the music. So she's not as far along for me as someone like Sherry Zhang is, which is okay. She's a junior, and that can come with time. But that was part of the reason that she fell in the standings in the free skate. In 11th place was Mia Caitlin, and she has changed coaches. She was not attempting a quad jump this season like she did last year. She is one who really slows down a lot when she does a toe pick jump. It's not as bad as Isabeau, but it's also not good. Last year she had almost no choreography in her programs, and this year she did have some choreography. Still lacks connection to the music, but we are at least moving the needle a little bit more, and that I think is really good. I find her spins to be pretty uninspired, so it's still a lot of work to do on that artistic mark, because I think she spent a lot of time, really working on jumps, like these hard jumps that she didn't do here. Don't know if she's relearning jump technique or exactly what's going on there. But I thought it was a better effort here, at least artistically, than what we saw from her last season. And 12th place was definitely the most disheartening maybe storyline for me of the whole championships, and that was Lindsay Thorngren. And the short program, just beautiful skate. Have loved this program for the past 2 years that she skated it. Like, Ben just like audibly gasped at this point in the choreography when she does like this catch foot move, but it's the same story, different day. Under calls again and an edge call on her flip, and just got a horrendous scores and was so deflated. And she looked as deflated coming into her free skate as she did in the short program. And I just felt like the judges have just like completely gotten in her head now. And the long program just did not go well. It was just a really, really tough skate. Every jump, except for her double axel, was called either under or she got fully downgraded to a double. Judge number 2 was just having none of her skating. She gave her 4s and 5s in skating skills. And I'm just like, really? Like, really? Like, are you punishing her for the undercalls? Because Lindsay has some of the better skating skills in this competition. Like, that just really pissed me off. I mean, just like, what a way to crush somebody's spirits, right? Like, I get it. I'm not advocating for them to not call jumps under if they're under, right? Like, it doesn't help the skater any to give them full credit for jumps that they're going to get called for internationally, right? but you can at least give the girl a bone and score her properly on her composition and her presentation. And I just don't understand why a judge like Judge Number Two would throw out scores like that. I just think it's just criminal, really. It's absurd. And I don't want to see Lindsay in the same position where we saw Audrey Shin last year, where she's just so frustrated with the calls that it's just not even fun for her anymore, because she does have such beautiful programs and skating skills. And I don't know what the issue is with the unders. I don't think it's the same issue that like Riku Mura has or Nina Penzaroni has, where they tighten up with the nerves in a competition environment and that causes them to under rotate their jumps. There's probably something in Lindsay's technique that's causing the problem. And it can be very, very hard to relearn jumps. If we think about like Satoko Miyahara, she tried to change coaches and go to Leroy Burkrell and relearn her jumping technique later in her career to try to get fully rotated jumps, and it just did not happen for her. I don't know what the fix is, but I know that what some of the judges did here at Nationals to Lindsay's is just not, that's not the answer. It really ticked me off. All right. Last couple people here I'm going to talk about. In 13th place was Alexa Gasparato. She was a last-minute addition for one of the withdrawals, and she made the best of it. The crowd really loved her free skate. Didn't quite get to 100, but they were super excited with her skate. She has really huge, big jumps, and she's somebody who has landed a triple axel in practice. It was on Instagram a couple months ago. She did not attempt it here, but you can see how she can do that because she gets such elevation on her jumps. I also want to throw a shout out to Alina Bonilla, who was 15th here, but her short program, she was skating Evanescence, and I'm always here for Evanescence program, so super, really enjoyed that. All right, let's talk about these international assignments, because a lot of people have a lot of opinions on whether or not Isabeau should have been granted a spot on the world team or not. Now, obviously, the spot that Isabeau was granted was based on her ability to compete, right? So she's going to have to show readiness at least 21 days before Worlds in order to confirm that spot. We don't know what that looks like. We finally found out when she withdrew that it is an ankle injury. We didn't know exactly what it was that caused her to withdraw from the Grand Prix. We assumed that it was an injury, but we didn't know what was injured. But we also couldn't rule out that it was a sickness or illness or anything else. They've been pretty tight-lipped about it. And, just today, Luna Hendricks announced that, she's going to have surgery on her ankle. So, as far as we know, Isabeau doesn't have that degree of an ankle injury, but we don't know because we have very little information. So as of right now, Isabeau is named to the world team. And Isabeau, Alyssa, Amber certainly represents the best opportunity to retain 3 spots going into an Olympic season. It also gives you the best opportunity to get onto the podium. Isabeau and Amber have the ability to, both get on the podium, right? Assuming that they're at their best, right? If Isabeau isn't at her best, then obviously she's not the best person to compete. But let's look at some of the criteria here. I did this in the Pierce episode, but let's look at it here in terms of the debate that people have between Sarah and Isabeau. And it's not quite as cut and dry as it was with Cam and O'Shea when you look at the most basic criteria, and that is, number one, the current U.S. Figure Skating Championships. Well, obviously Isabeau isn't here, so she can't get any points in that department. The second is the most recent ISU Grand Prix final, which, of course, Isabeau was unable to qualify for this year because she was only in one Grand Prix. She was at the last 2, but that's not part of the criteria in this, first block. The second one is Grand Prix score, highest, and average. Obviously, Isabeau doesn't have an average because she just skated in one. Highest actually is pretty similar to what Sarah's best score was in the free skate. Isabeau does have a much higher score in the short program. Challenger score is the next one. Isabeau has a little bit higher score in what she scored at Nebelhorn than what Sarah scored at Cranberry Cup. But Sarah has a better score at Cranberry Cup than what Isabeau has, and Sarah has the highest score overall because Sarah scored over 200 points at Lombardia. So if you take the highest score, that's a favor in Sarah. If you take the average, I think they're about the same. Challenger, the senior B score, neither one of them were in a senior B. And then the note 6, which is the smallest factor, would be the previous season's total score, which would go to Isabeau for her performance at Worlds. Now, that is criteria A. Criteria B is in addition to the calculation of the overall athlete performance data, which is the first criteria that I just mentioned, the top 5 athletes from the current U.S. Figure Skating Championships, which she's not, top 10 at the immediately preceding World Championships, which she is, any competitor in the immediately preceding Olympic Games, which no one is, and any athlete in the current season's top 24 in world rankings, which Isabeau, I think, is currently number 2 in the world rankings, would also be placed in that pool. And then they have some other things that they can add for various reasons. So really what you're looking at is a very similar resume in the fall, right, between their challengers and their Grand Prix scores. Sarah, obviously, getting 3rd place here at U.S. Championships versus Isabeau getting 2nd place at last year's World Championships, which, as far as prestige go, is more prestigious, and so it's at the committee's discretion at that point of who they want to pick. And they're going to pick, in my mind, who they feel like gives them the best chance to qualify spots. And Isabeau, if you look at her resume, at the past 2 World Championships, she has been 2nd and she has been 4th. She has made, Grand Prix finals twice in seasons that she's been able to complete both of her Grand Prix. And she has given you no reason to pick anyone else over her at this point. I think the only person that you would make an argument for picking over Isabeau would be Amber, who has had a phenomenal season, right? But anybody else, I think, comes up short. Alyssa, Sarah, come up short to Isabeau. And so if she's ready to go, she's got to be the pick based on her resume, right? Now, if she's not ready to go, plug Sarah in there, and you feel confident enough that Sarah could lay down 2 good skate, right? And then the pressure really comes on Amber to really perform well and hope that Alyssa and Sarah can keep those 3 spots. I obviously love for them to have 3 spots. It sucks to only have 2 spots in Olympic season, for sure. But if they go to Worlds and they bomb and they don't qualify enough to get 3 spots, then they don't, then they don't have the firepower to really deserve it, right? But right now, you would really like to see them retain those 3 spots. And I don't think that, if that Isabeau is going to put herself in a position to implode. I think if she's not ready, she's going to pull herself out. I just think that that's the case. But that's sort of the rationale for the ladies. The 4 continents team looks like Brady, Alyssa, and Sarah. So Amber obviously opting not to compete. Isabeau, wasn't there. Of course, nobody was there last year because the dates were crazy. Isabeau did go 2 years ago, but I think would unlikely to go anyway. So basically, you're there with slots 2, 3, and 4 from nationals. So Sarah and Brady both get another international assignment, and then Alyssa gets some much needed opportunity at some world standing points at 4 continents. All right, let's move on to the men. So in this event, we had a couple of withdrawals as well, namely Jason Brown, who posted just a few days before the event he would not be here due to equipment malfunction. Basically, I think he's put on some new boots and it's not going well. So I'll read what he said on Instagram. I've been facing a series of challenges adjusting to an equipment change, and I find myself unable to train and compete at a level I demand of myself. I'm working with my team to resolve this and return to competition soon. Wishing all the athletes the best of luck this week, and to the fans, whether in the stands or watching on TV, you're in for some incredible skating. So he was out. And then also Lucas Broussard, who we saw at Skate America this season, actually has fractured his pelvis, and so he was also unable to compete here. All right, getting into the results, the winner here, no surprise, Ilya Malinin, winning his 3rd national title in a row, and in much better fashion than what he has the last couple of seasons, when his free skates especially have left a lot to be desired. In the short program, I really love this vehicle for him. I don't understand the costume change, like maybe the hoodie wasn't practical, but I like the color of the previous costume better than the colors in this one. I'm nitpicking, but it's a really fabulous program. The jumps look so easy and he has the space to really perform. And my question is, can they outdo this program for next season? Like, this is such a strong program. I'm like, can the Olympic program be better than this? We'll see. In his free skate, he decided to do this 7 quad free skate again that he did at Grand Prix final, which I was initially like, why? Like, why do 7 quads? You don't need them at nationals. But then I was like, okay, he's obviously wanting to do this at Worlds. And so if you know that you're going to want to do it at Worlds, why not give it another go at US Nationals to give another opportunity to do it? And so maybe at Worlds, it's going to be a little bit stronger because you've had a couple of attempts at this feat, right? Boy, he had a really bad fall on that quad loop. Like, I was like, did he hit his head? I mean, it was just jarring, just kind of took the wind out of the program, might have taken the wind out of himself at that point. And the quad loop is what he struggled with this season in terms of getting all 6 of the quads. Last season, it was the quad flip that was a problem for him because he had an injury with his hip. This year, for whatever reason, it's been the quad loop that has just not worked out for him. At Grand Prix final, all of his quads got calls, every single one. Here, he only had a couple of calls. One was on the quad loop that he fell on, and the other was on his quad Salchow later in the program. I thought that the jumps didn't look like a struggle like they looked at Grand Prix final, and so in that way, it was improvement. And I do find that his jumps are exciting, but I don't find the content of the program as exciting when he's doing this many quads. And then he goes into his backflip, which is, it's on great with the music, but it was legit scary here because he almost fell. He put his hand down to save himself from falling. And, Elia does this kind of like, almost like back layout style backflip. He doesn't land on both feet. He usually lands on, one foot at a time and then brings the second one down. Not like Surya Bonali would like legit land on one leg, but it's even probably more riskier, I would think, to do that than when you land on 2 feet. And I have not been a fan of the backflip all season. I wasn't a fan of it last year. I didn't understand why Adam would take a deduction to put it in there. Just like do it at the end, after you're taking your bows like you would do sometimes, or do it at the medal ceremony if you get on the podium. Like, I don't find it necessary have it in the programs. And then when you put it in a program like this, when he's already got so many quads, everybody's going to put a backflip at the end of the program. Like, nobody's going to put the backflip at the beginning. So you're doing it on tired legs. It's very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And I don't like it. And I think they should go back to banning it. And if they don't, I fear what's going to happen is somebody's going to get hurt. Then they're going to have to ban it. And so my thought is, can we just save that from happening? Like, let's not wait until somebody gets hurt. Like, let's just go ahead and ban it to minimize that risk. And it's just, and I think Elia said in the press conference after that, the backflip is like doing a leap for him. Like, it takes such little effort. And I'm like, boy, that's not what it looked like in the program. Like, it looked effortful and scary. And I just think it needs to go. And I understand that some people really like it and they think that the risk is pretty minimal. Some people think the novelty is kind of going to wear off. I've heard people in interviews this season talk about they're trying to learn a backflip so they can put it in. And then people say, well, they do it in an exhibition. Like, are we really comparing exhibition programs to competitive programs? People are not going out there and doing multiple quads in the exhibition. Oftentimes exhibitions are not 4 minutes long with all of these requirements. Like, it's an exhibition for a reason. There's tons of space to do whatever you want to do. It's not the same. It's not the same. And to me, like, this was a really, really good example, exhibit A, of why you should not be in competitive programs. And definitely not for somebody like Elia, who's doing just like insane tech content already. Like, I know he feels like his body has no limits, but everybody has a limit. All right. But he wins here. He got just absurd scores in both segments of the competition. He still won on PCS, which is, come on. I mean, Andrew was definitely better here in PCS than what Elia was in his free skate. Because again, he's just, when he's zoned in on all those quads, the performance just isn't really there. Was it better than Grand Prix Final? Yes. Was it the best in this competition? In the free skate? Definitely not. All right, moving on to our second place competitor, and that was Andrew Torgashev, who continues to have just a fantastic season. And last year at this time, he was not able to do a quad. So he came here at nationals and did quadless programs, and he did two very good quadless programs. But the quad has been such a big deal for him and sort of getting back into the conversation this season. He came in really expecting him to finish on the podium and to make the world team, which he does here. Short program, I thought his quad toe looked so good. I just threw it down. I don't think he could perform that program any better. I love this program. I loved it last year. I still love it this year. I'm not sick of it. I just thought it was probably the best that he's performed this particular program as many times as I've seen it. In this free skate, this was actually his first time this season doing two quads. He's just been doing the one quad. So here he did both and did them both very well. He nailed everything, and this was excited as I was pretty much all weekend. I was hooping and hollering from my couch. I was so excited for him. He looks. I don't know what him and Rolf Arturian have been doing in the fall. I saw some people saying, "Oh my God, Brandon is coach of the year." So I think Brandon's more of a stand-in for Andrew. Rolf Arturian is his main coach, but why change anything that has worked? The bro connection, has been working, right? So good. And if he skates like this, at Worlds, then I think we could feel okay about the spots, right? Super good. All right, in third place was Camden Pulkkinen. For the second season in a row, he was third after many years of being seventh, eighth, and just kind of, he's never going to get there. And after the season that he had in the fall, because goodness knows, I gave him the blues in one of those episodes for the Grand Prix because he was skating so uninspired. There just was almost a visible lack of effort. And I, questioning the choice to work full time. I'm still questioning that choice, by the way. But at least here, he looked like he had a pulse. In that short program, he went back to his old Moulin Rouge short program that he used in the 21-22 season. He landed the quad toe forward and he got an undercall, but he was so pumped after the end of that program that I was glad to see it because I'm okay, it means a lot to him. He wants to be on the world team. He wants to make an Olympic team. And I just was so glad to see some fire out of him because we haven't seen any sign of that this season. And then in the free skate, he did not get a quad toe off. He just did a triple toe, and he just did a triple Lutz double toe instead of a triple Lutz triple toe. Now, part of that might be, let's see, I'd have to do some jump math. When you have a planned quad toe and then you do a triple toe, then you have to think if you're going to do another triple toe later in the program because you can't do three, right? So I don't know if jump math, that was a decision that he made to do that, but I'm pretty sure he still could have done a triple Lutz triple toe there. I'm basically just talking to myself at this point. Okay. But anyway, it's a really interesting program. The tech content is not there to be competitive with, not just the best in the world, but maybe even that mid tier in the world. But he did enough to get third place on the podium here and at least put himself in the conversation for a potential world's berth. I'll talk about that here in a second. And fourth place was Maxim Nuomov, who is fourth for the third year in a row. They're going to name the Pewter Award after Maxim if he gets it again next year, right? Just at least he's consistent. In the short program, he had a hard fall on his quad Zalcow. And so that put him in seventh after the short program. So he was having to come from behind. But I did feel like that he had better quality of movement in that short program than we have seen from him. He is somebody that was at Skate America, and I was pretty underwhelmed at times. And I really felt like I could see some improvements in both of his programs artistically here. In his free skate, he went back to last year's Tosca program. He was doing a Tron program earlier in the season, which I really enjoyed. Thought his costume was crazy on a stick, but I really enjoyed the program itself. But Tosca worked for him here. He seemed really committed to it. I thought he performed it better here than what he performed it last year. He missed his quad at the beginning and popped it into a double, and then he went and just nailed everything else. He actually ended up third in the free skate, and he ended up 4 points behind Camden, which, had he landed the quad sal, obviously that would have done it. But even if he had popped the quad sal into a triple, that would have gotten tremendously close to Camden. So he was just within a whisper of getting onto the third place on the podium here, which could have changed things dramatically for him going forward. And then in Fifth place was Jimmy Ma, and oh my goodness, poor Jimmy. I mean, this is his 11th senior nationals. He has been fifth or sixth in the last 6 seasons, and fifth again here this season. He came out in the short program and just nailed everything. And I was like, what? Okay, Jimmy. And he's always a performer. So when he nails everything, he's going to go even to that extra level. Like he's usually at an 11, whether he's falling or not. But he was like at, a 20 in that short program. But I was like, okay, we've seen this before. Like we've seen Jimmy come out, nail a short program, and then fall apart in the free skate. He didn't fall apart, but I felt like this was probably his best opportunity to ever get on a world team. And he popped his quad toe, stepped out of his triple axel, triple salchow sequence. He fell in his second triple axel, and poof, he, fell underneath those other skaters and took himself out of consideration for worlds. And I was bummed for Jimmy because it's, it at times is all there, but it's never all there at the same time. In sixth place was Tomoki Hiwatashi. He also had a lot of movement in his programs. In his short program, he fell on his quad toe, and that put him in 10th place. And then the free skate, we got good Tomoki. Like the crowd was loving it, and he ended up bringing himself all the way up to 6th place. He was 5th in the free skate, and he does just enough to keep himself relevant. I mean, this is like the story every year with Tomoki. I'm always like, we get to the Grand Prix, I'm like, why does he have assignments? Exactly. This is why. Because he never does just poorly enough to keep himself out of the conversation, but never does good enough to put him in the conversation for world spots or anything like that. So here he is in the top 6 yet again. In 7th place was Jacob Sanchez, and he has won everything in juniors this season. He won both of his Grand Prix. He won Grand Prix final. And there was a lot of buzz that I saw on the Gold Skate forums, on Reddit, about, Jacob being a potential good person to have as one of the world spots because they felt like he's been extremely consistent this season. He was in one senior event, the Talon Trophy, back in November, and he actually won that. And while he wasn't skating against, Yuma Kageyama and Shun Sato, he did beat Roman Sadovsky, and he did beat Jimmy Ma and Daniel Martinoff, who were also here. And so he, these aren't slouches that he was winning against. But even so, he was really great in the short program. It's a good program from him. It's really been money all year. He fell out of a move in his step sequence, kind of like Mikhail Shadorov did in one of his programs in the Grand Prix this season. And so it got called a fall. But even so, he found himself in the final group. And then in the free skate, he just really wasn't as strong as we've seen him this season. He doesn't have a quad yet. So he's one who needs to land the content that he has. And he popped his second triple axel. I just felt like the program felt a little empty, and it just didn't have his usual charm that we've seen from him this season. The music can get a little monotonous. I feel like he doesn't really finish all of his movements. There were times in his step sequence I felt like he was going to fall, so I didn't feel like he was just quite on top of, the best that we have seen him at this season. And I would love to see, especially the free skate, get, a new program for him. I don't think that this shows him off the best that it could. In 8th place was Liam Kapakis. His short program I really love. First of all, I love Movement by Hosier. It's such a great piece of music. Lindsay Thorngren also uses it for her free skate. He's very expressive in this. He squeaked out that triple axel. It was such a strong performance. I think it's the best that we've really seen him. And he found himself in that final group. Fortunately, in the free skate, it did not go as well. He started with a quad toe, and you could just see it go awry in the air. And frankly, I don't think I've ever seen Liam land a quad toe. I feel like it's a good day if he lands a triple axel. I don't know what the success rate of this jump for his in practice. I just feel like, and I feel like I said this probably for him last year, I would rather him take the Jason Brown approach and just get those elements consistent and clean, and then, add the four revolutions at some point. Unfortunately, his tech problems didn't end with the fall on there. He also fell on his triple axel as well. So, it's just so unfortunate. I found his music in the long program to be not as satisfying as the short program. I found it kind of annoying at times. unfortunately, but he ends up 8th, which isn't terrible. He ends up with the top 10. A couple of shout outs that I'll give. Daniel Martinoff, who definitely needs some refinement, but he was fully committed to that swing short program that he did. I found that really enjoyable. And then Kai Kovar, his free skate was like a mashup of Tron and Separate Ways, which I kind of liked. I mean, you would not think that those two pieces of music really go together, but I thought it kind of worked. I really enjoyed it. All right, let's talk about the assignments for the men. So we had Jason, which was a whole thing. That was a whole thing on the free skate day because Ashley said on the world feed that Jason was not petitioning. I have no idea. She obviously had to have had some information from somebody to have said that on the air, but that was the case. So then, of course, that's what everybody was running with. Jason's not petitioning. And then after the event was over, Jackie's like, I have not heard that he is or is not petitioning. I'm not saying that he's not petitioning. I'm not saying, that he is petitioning, but I can't confirm that he's definitely not. And so we didn't know until the world assignments came out that apparently Jason did petition and was named to the world team. And so, which I think is probably one of the least controversial decisions. I think people feel a certain way about it because they don't know what the status is of his training right now and is he going to be ready. He has the same exact issue that Isabeau has. He's got to show readiness at least 21 days before the event in order for them to confirm that spot for him. But let's be honest. Okay, let's look at the other contenders here. Okay, Camden was 3rd last year at Nationals, and so he got the world spots. He was 20th at Worlds. Okay, Andrew Torgashev, he's been brilliant this season, right? He has been at Worlds one time in the 2023 season. He was 22nd at Worlds. Jason has been there both of the last 2 seasons when these other 2 guys were there. He's been 5th both times in the last 2 years. So who are you going to put money on? Jason Brown or Torgashev or Camden? And really the question here becomes between Torgashev is going anyway, right? The question becomes between Jason and Camden. Who do you have more faith in? And infinitely, I have more faith in Jason. I just do, right? And so for the men, this becomes a really interesting situation because whereas with the ladies, you feel like even if Isabeau can't go, you still feel okay with Amber and Alyssa and Sarah that they could still probably get 3 spots. Because if Amber finishes in the top 3, the other ladies would just need to be 10th to get to 13. If Amber were to be 3rd, if Amber were to win, they just need to be 12th because those placements have to end up at 13, right? With the men, it's a lot more dicey without Jason because even if Ilya wins, the next guy's got to be at 12th to get those 13 points to get 3 spots. And that's a lot more dicey because even Andrew, if Andrew skates like he skated here, they'll be fine, right? But if you think about Japanese men, right now, they chose to send Tesua Tsuboi to Worlds, which I personally think is a mistake, but we'll see how that fares for them. But they've got Yuma and Shun, who are definitely going to be up there, right? We have no idea what the Frenchmen are bringing to the table. Is Adam healthy? Are we going to get good Kevin or bad Kevin? Who knows? But those are also going to be people that would be ahead of a potential 3rd American man, right? Junwan Cha. Again, we don't know what we're going to get, but he is somebody that theoretically should be ahead of them, right? Mikhail Shadorov, Daniel Grassel, those are also competitors who have scored super high this season. They're probably going to be ahead of these guys. Lucas Britschke, what does he look like? Typically, he's going to be a guy that's going to score ahead of these as well. And so they have very, very little margin for error if Jason's not there. If Jason's there and he skates what we've seen Jason skate like in the past couple of seasons at Worlds, you're not worried. If Jason shows up and he looks like he did in the Grand Prix, then we have cause to be concerned for sure. And we don't know what Jason looks like right now, but I can't see an argument to send Camden over Jason if Jason is healthy enough to go, right? Now, again, if Jason isn't healthy enough to go, then Camden it is. I'm going to figure out between now and in a World's preview episode, I don't think they're doing the same rule that they did 4 years ago, where if the 3rd person doesn't qualify for the free skate, that they have to qualify for spots. And the whole issue that we had with Vincent, where he had some kind of an injury, and he didn't disclose it, he didn't make the final, and so therefore the men's 3rd spot was conditional on them earning it at Nebelhorn, which this year it won't be Nebelhorn. It's going to be in China. But anyway, I don't think that they're doing that rule, but I'm going to confirm that at some point. If you know, please throw that in the comments, and that'll save me some research. But I'll figure that out before then. So I don't think that that's an issue. If it was, then that has to terrify you because, both Camden and Andrew have been in the 20s, when they have been in the world, and you can't feel super secure about that. Now, the way Andrew has been skating, if he continues to do that, I feel okay about it. And the fact that he has been to worlds before, maybe he's knocked off some of that like first world jitters, then you feel a little bit better about him being there this season. But it is definitely more dicey for the men than I feel like that it is for any of the other disciplines, for sure. For continents, we've got Maxim Nuomov, Kamzin Polkinen, and Andrew Chorgashev all going at 4 continents. All right, let's give out some Pamchenko awards. So for the ladies, I've got to give it to Alyssa Liu for that short program. It was so beautiful. It just created this amazing moment. I think she just kind of drew everybody in. And that's really the best that I feel like we've ever really seen Alyssa skate, both technically and artistically. She had made some strides for sure artistically in that last season that she skated in the Olympic season. But now with 2 years away and a little bit of life experience, a little bit older, this short program just showcases it just really well. And then for the men, I'm definitely giving my Pamchenko award to Andrew Chorgashev. Both of his programs were just really fantastic and a highlight for me of just the whole event. All right. So that completes my coverage of U.S. Nationals. Looking ahead to Europeans this coming weekend, for the men, I feel like it's, a little up in the air. I mean, Adam obviously comes in as the reigning champion. He's been, a big question mark this season with the ankle injury that he had and the offseason that he aggravated it in his second Grand Prix, I think on a quad lutz in the short program. So if he does show up, what does he look like? What does the tech content look like? What short program did he pick to go with? Because remember, he had a couple different short programs. So he comes in, I think, as kind of the reluctant favorite. After that, boy, it's kind of anybody's game, right? Because last year it was Alexander Selevko that was silver, and he's had a terrible season, right? Lucas Bridgkey came in last season, had a really strong short program, looked like he was going to medal for the second year in a row, and really kind of fell apart in the free skate. He hasn't been at his best due to injury in the fall. So is he going to put himself back in the conversation? What are we going to get from Kevin, right? Kevin at Grand Prix final was like frustrating Kevin again. So what are we going to get from Kevin? Daniel Grassel is definitely going to be in the mix for a medal. So I think those are going to be your big contenders for sure. Can Mateo, kind of get back to a level where he's a bit more competitive because he definitely has the goods. He's medaled at Europeans before just a couple of years ago. So those are going to be kind of the guys that are going to be in the mix. If I had to predict somebody, guess I predict Adam. He's definitely the best skater. I just don't know where he's at. And then for the ladies, super up in the air because Luna had already withdrawn, and of course we got the news today that she's gonna be out for the whole season and have to get ankle surgery. So she's last year's reigning champion, so she won't be repeating. Anastasia Gabanova has had, this has been her best event by far. She was second last year. She won the year before that. Does she find that magic for a third year in a row and get back on the podium? Nina Pinzarone was on the podium last season. She was brilliant in the Grand Prix last year. Could not find her form. Lots and lots of calls for her in the Grand Prix this season. Is she able to find her form? And then we've got Kimi Rapon, who is my dark horse pick for winning Europeans because she has gotten a little bit better in all of her Grand Prix this season. What has held her back in her Grand Prix has been American ladies, Japanese ladies, and none of those people are going to be here, right? Literally the only competitor at Europeans who even medaled on the Grand Prix this year is Laura Naki-Gutmann, who's a big wild card, right? Are we going to see the best that we saw from her, or is it going to be back to kind of status quo, what we normally see from her? Who knows? So my dark horse is Kimi Rapon for the win, and we'll see how it all shakes out. All right. Thank you guys, as always, for listening to the podcast. You can find me on all the socials at iSkate Podcast. You can also send me a line at thecuttingedgepod@gmail.com. I appreciate all the love and the shout outs that I've seen at times on Reddit or Golden Skate. People ask about, podcasts. There's a lot of choices now, which I think is great, right? I think when I decided to start the podcast, there weren't as many choices. And so it's great that there's a lot more choices now. I think that's really encouraging that people are, having a little bit of an increased presence on social media and just media in general. And so definitely continue to support not just me, but other skating channels that are out there as well. And if you feel so inclined, definitely leave a review, and that helps other people find the podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll be back with European coverage next week.